Do you have a feeling that Uganda has gone too far with its legislation?
I am Kenyan, so I'm sure Ugandans can speak for themselves. I can only tell you about Kenya and what Kenya as a country and me as a leader, we've taken the position that
it's so funny that the West are now asking other African presidents if the president of Uganda is doing a right decision. One thing I love about President Ruto is how intellectual he is. Actually, he is a professor, for those who don't know. President Ruto was asked why Uganda should let LGBTQ. This was a question to trap him. This was a question to bring conflict between Kenya and Uganda. The president was very smart.
Do you have a feeling that Uganda has gone too far with its legislation?
I am Kenyan, so I'm sure Ugandans can speak for themselves. I can only tell you about Kenya.
Are trying to hit two heads. They are taking reports from Uganda, bringing them to Kenya, thinking like we are stupid, Africans, we are not stupid. Our dark skin does not make us stupid. Actually, we are the wisest, I'm told. So, this journalist from the West, he's very notorious actually. He comes from some place in Europe, I think so. So he comes and asks President Ruto about the matters of Uganda. How dare you ask our president about the matters of Uganda? He wants President Ruto to go and tell the Ugandan president to stop and allow the gays to coexist. But that's not right. How would a president, your neighboring president, go and talk to you about your matters? You sat down with your people, you sat down with the members of parliament, and you made the decision. Even if we call 10 presidents on you, you still made your decision. You cannot go away from it. The problem is not even making a decision. The problem is they're trying to collide two heads together, And this is not right. This is not right. We shouldn't try to beat two heads together. People should be left with their own choices. People should be left with their decisions. Because we Africans, we can't force polygamy on the white people. We practice polygamy as a traditional thing. I'm not for polygamy. I don't support polygamy, but Africans practice polygamy. And if we practice polygamy and they are bringing gayism, something that God was very angry, they're bringing it to Africa, something very unnatural, then Africans as well, because it's a transaction, they should give the other side of their transaction, The equilibrium has to be balanced. That's how it goes. The equilibrium has to be balanced. Anyways, so let's jump into this video and see how this tried to outsmart the president of Kenya. Let's watch it.
And I'd just like to finish by touching on an issue that has been the source of some international controversy, the LGBT issue, which in East Africa, many East African countries, has been controversial. Just recently, the neighboring country of Uganda introduced very draconian legislation, which caused quite an outcry internationally. Do you have a feeling that Uganda has gone too far with its legislation?
I am Kenyan, so I'm sure Ugandans can speak for themselves. I can only tell you about Kenya and what Kenya as a country and me as a leader, we've taken the position that the provisions of the Constitution as it is today, the provisions of the law as it is today, we allow other countries to do what they want to do. We cannot dictate to Germans or Americans or French or Ugandans on what they want to do. That's theirs to choose. For us as a country, we have taken a position, and that position is informed by our culture, our tradition, our constitution, and our laws.
But those laws do date back to the colonial era in some cases. And, critics outside would say, well, LGBT rights are an intrinsic part of human rights, which are internationally recognized. Do you recognize that? Do you see that the rights of LGBT people are intrinsically a question of human rights, which are universal, or do you feel that it is simply something that it is for each country to decide?
The Kenyan Constitution is a 2010 constitution. In fact, it was celebrated as the most progressive constitution, providing especially the chapter on human rights and the rights of people and the extent of the protection of rights of people that is enshrined in the Constitution. And in that context, in the formulation of that Constitution, the people of Kenya spoke expressly as to what kind of rights and to what extent everybody can enjoy their rights without infringing on the rights of others. In Kenya, the only understanding of relationships around marriage is around men marrying women. That's the context of a relationship that exists in Kenya and exists in our constitution and is provided for in our constitution. And it can happen elsewhere. We have no issue with people celebrating their issues in America and in other countries. That is their choosing.
Just very briefly, I mean, it was really just a blink of an eye also in Europe, in the United States, that marriage was only between a man and a woman as well. It's a very short time. Do you think that will never come in Kenya, or you think maybe it will just come, but in a longer period of time?
I cannot tell you. I cannot stretch my imagination that far. Maybe we can leave it here for now and see what happens in the future.
It's so funny that the West are now asking other African presidents if the president of Uganda is doing a right decision. One thing I love about President Ruto is how intellectual he is. Actually, he is a professor, for those who don't know. President Ruto was asked why Uganda should let LGBTQ. This was a question to trap him. This was a question to bring conflict between Kenya and Uganda. The president was very smart.
You have a feeling that Uganda has gone too far with its legislation?
I am Kenyan. So I'm sure Ugandans can speak for themselves. I can only tell you about Kenya.
And also, after watching this video, kindly subscribe to the channel, guys. Subscribe down below. Check out my partner's channel. We are trying to hit 1,000 subscribers. Kindly help us in this. The link is in the description and the comment section. Take your time. And guys, Africans, we value our traditional values. For this reason, goodbye. See you in the next video. We know how much Africans, we love to preserve our culture. The West has always been pushing the LGBTQ agenda on our throats. But I'm here to tell you this. It's so fortunate that most of our African leaders are against this LGBTQ. Take, for example, the man from the Ugandan side, the man from the Pearl of Africa, Mr. President Yoweri Museveni, is known to be somebody who is against LGBTQ. See? And also we have the president of Liberia, Sirleaf Johnson, is against LGBTQ. We also know the former president of Kenya, that is Uhuru Kenyatta, was against LGBTQ. He stated that LGBTQ is not a key issue for Kenyans. Kenyans have other big issues to get concerned with. And also the current president of Kenya also has a stance. He's not said it openly that he's against LGBTQ. And also he was done an interview and he gave such a remarkable point. He gave such an important announcement to the announcer.